Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing a video on mental health because Mental Health Awareness Day was on Saturday. And so with me I have my friend Rochelle, and I thought it was really fitting to bring her to do this video with me because she worked with... Actually, I'm just going to let her tell you about what she did.
So I had a placement year in industry, whatever you want to call it, and I worked in a mental health and wellbeing charity in London. So I worked with people who had various different mental health disorders such as depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, or a mix of them. And yeah, so I spent the year working closely with them, and I do like one-to-one visits with them. It could be doing anything like they needed to do, for example, like doing shopping, or it could be going to see their psychiatrists with them. Yeah, that in summary is what I was doing for the year.
Yeah, so like I said, very fitting to bring her on to speak about this topic because I just feel like on top of her doing all of this, she's been very vocal on social media, at least I've noticed, about advocating for mental health and really taking care of yourself in that aspect. So yeah, we're just gonna get into today's video. So the first thing, we're gonna speak about many things, but the first thing I kind of want to speak about is mental health being a spectrum versus these very clearly defined things. So I saw this graphic basically, and it was like, at one end it was mental wellness and then mental unwellness, right? And you can literally be anywhere in between that. And I feel like for me personally, that resonated because I feel like a lot of people define mental illnesses as you're either like depressed, anxiety, and you have to fit like these boxes. And if you don't exactly fit these boxes, then you must be fine, you know? Whereas I feel like it transitions from every day to day. So like every day you can be mentally well completely, or you can have very bad days where maybe you're not clinically depressed, but you're not okay as well, right?
I definitely think that is true. I think a lot of people don't realise that you don't have to be like diagnosed with depression, anxiety to be not in your best mental state. I think there's a statistic that something like 1 in 4 adults will experience struggles with their mental health within their lifetime at any given point. So like right now, 1 in 4 adults are having mental health issues, and who are not necessarily diagnosed with whatever it is. So I think that definitely, like, I think now people are becoming more aware that the spectrum is a lot bigger than you're at one end or you're at the other, but there's still a lot of work to be done.
And I feel like now the fact that people are more aware of like it is a spectrum versus these very defined things helps with the stigmatization around mental health. I mean, you've worked with people who are clinically diagnosed. How do you think they feel with regards to, you know, if you have a mental illness, you're somehow regarded as crazy, unstable?
I've seen it. So like when I'm out with them, say like in a shop because I need to pick up something, I saw how other people treated them, and it was like kind of like a fear or like a judgment that people would treat them with. Whereas I'm with them and I'm like, I know what's going on in their life. I know that they're acting this way because X, Y, Z, and it's just, I think there's a lot of lack of education around kind of symptoms and how they manifest in different people. And I think if people had more awareness of what a mental illness could look like, I think there'd be a lot less judgment and stigma around.
Yeah, that's a really good point because, like I was saying, these clearly defined boxes. So like you feel like someone who's depressed must be in bed all day, must be crying all the time. Whereas I feel like, I don't know if this is a bad word to use, but high functioning individuals.
Yeah, well, I don't know, I can't remember. I haven't got my degree yet, so it's
almost there, close enough, but
something like that.
Please, y'all, I don't know the correct terms, but high functioning individuals, I guess, who suffer from these illnesses aren't exactly going to be the textbook in bed all day crying, like, they're not gonna be shuttered away from the world. There are people who can manage it and hide it very, very well. Sure. And I feel like there are a lot of people like that.
100%. And I think it's because they hide it, you don't realise how many people there are. Like, it could be someone so close to you, but you can also just, like, not know what, unless they tell you, or unless you're, like, aware of some of the signs that they're not 100%. They, like, you just wouldn't know that they're going through hell, essentially.
Yeah. And that brings me into my next point of how much more common it is now. I have a really big issue with people saying it's much more common now. Again, I don't know anything. This is just my observations of things. So maybe, as she's dealt with actual people, she may have the real insight. But I feel like to say it's much more common now is so incredibly wrong. Because I feel like back in the day or whenever, your parents' generation or grandparents' generation, there weren't resources and things put in place for people to come out and say, I have these issues, If you came out like this, it was this kind of, just deal with it. Life has to go on. So, just deal with it. Or if you were on the extreme end, it was, well, you're crazy, let's just lock you up in a mental institution. so, I feel like everybody, as many people were still suffering, but now it's become kind of this thing where you don't have to suffer in silence.
Yeah. For sure. I definitely think psychology is kind of not a new science, but like people haven't really recognized it as important as it is. Like, it comes into play in so many different things in life, but only in the past dates, I don't remember, past like however many years, people have been doing research and recognizing different disorders and moods and
and it's evolving.
Feelings. Yeah. And even still with that, one thing I find is that a lot of the researchers are white males, and a lot of the people being researched are either college students or middle-class white people. So in like the black community, I feel like, especially after this year, I really realised that there's a lack of research on not even just black people, people of colour. And another thing culturally, I don't know about back home for you, but it's not, mental health issues aren't really a spoken about subject. They're very taboo back home for me, and even like at home with my parents, because they both grew up in Africa. It's just not a thing that you speak about at all.
I think now definitely our generation are becoming more open to speaking about it.
Yeah.
And I think even that is still a stretch, because it is, I feel like I want to make the differentiation between women and men, because I feel like women are more likely to speak about it and have these conversations, whereas men are still in this kind of, we need to be men and we can't have emotions. And I'm not saying all of your men do this. I'm not saying that, but
a lot of you. Yeah.
There is this we are still in a society that deems men showing emotions as weak and fragile. So, I feel like our generation now is opening the door for speaking about it more and not being afraid that it makes you less of a human because you're suffering or you're going through something,
Yeah, for sure.
So she made a really good point about who we're studying and where the data is coming from. And I feel like you're now going into this field. So how do you think it's changing, or do you think we have a long way to go before the studies become
inclusive?
I
think now it's being recognised that there's a lack of research on different cultures, but only recently. So the recognition is there, but there's just so much to it, like getting people of colour to actually engage with studies and getting them to recognise that psychology and mental health is important to them as much as it is to middle
know.
class people or whatever.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I feel like a lot of people put mental health on a back burner for things of their life. So it's like, okay, I have to go to school, I have to get it done, I have to get a job, I have to, you know, do all these things, hit all these markers, and I just have to do them. So regardless of how I feel or where I am, I'm gonna get to these points. But the whole point is that your mental health will suffer or will be moving along with you through all these goals you feel you need to hit, and you have to focus on it as well. And I feel like a lot of people don't do that.
Yeah. I also don't think it's easy. Like, for example, you can call in sick to work because you threw up last night, but you can't call in sick because your mental health is just not, like, that's not, it's not seen as a valid reason to not be able to go to work. Although it's a very valid reason to not be able to go to work.
Yeah, that's very true. Like, a higher placement needs to be put on these things and how much they actually affect people and how they're able to function as a human, you know? Hopefully we do that soon. My next point that I want to discuss is dealing with friends and family who have mental health issues, etc., etc. So for me personally, I have dealt with some people who have mental health issues, and you never know what to say. You never know what to do.
Yeah.
Sometimes it feels like you're walking on eggshells.
Yep.
And then, this might sound bad, but sometimes you get burnt out. Dealing with someone, I think people forget that it's not just them alone going through, like, yes, they are experiencing what they're experiencing, but there is a runoff onto you.
Yeah.
Kind of. So sometimes I feel bad because I'm like, I can't help you right now because I don't have the space to help you, or I'm like tired of dealing with it. And it's this kind of thing where I feel like, oh my god, I'm a terrible person for leaving this person out in the open by themselves, you know?
I get that. I also have like not dealt with, but I know, like, I'm close to people who have mental health struggles, and it is tiring. It takes a toll on you, but that's not to say it's your responsibility. As much as you care for them and you want to help them, sometimes you have to put yourself first. Like, you should be your number one priority. Having said that, you can be open and transparent with them. Like, I think there's another thing. People see people who have mental health issues or challenges as, like, weak and fragile. They're still themselves. They're, like, more than just their mental health struggles.
I think that's something I really struggled with a bit, is that this idea of, like I said, tiptoeing on eggshells around a person. I kind of forget at certain points that this is still a person. Like, I don't have to, they're not gonna break if I say something a particular way. And I feel like that's what a bit of stigmatization comes from, that as well, because we feel like these people are so fragile that we can't do these things around them. We can't say these things because they'll just shatter into a million pieces, and that will be the be all and end all for them. You know?
Yeah. I felt that too, but that's like a chance for you to remind yourself that, okay, let me take a step back and just say, like, you can literally just say to them, like, I feel like, you can say, I don't know how to help you right now, or you can ask them what they need or what they think they need, what you can do to help. Just having like an open conversation with them on things that they feel that would help them. And if they don't know, then maybe working with them to, like, research places they can go or someone they can talk to who might know how to help them professionally.
Yeah, I think that's a problem a lot of people have, myself included, is that we feel like we need to have the answers. So we don't feel like we can say, I don't know how to help you, or I don't know what to do in this situation. We feel like we have to come up with all these elaborate plans of, like, okay, if we just do this, you'll feel better. You know, and it's not the case at all. Instead, we're all just kind of shooting into the dark, hoping that
something will work.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, that's not how it works.
Okay, so another thing I want to talk about with regards to dealing with people with mental health is I have decided to take people at their word in many aspects of my life. So this obviously includes that. So if someone says to me, I have anxiety or I'm suffering today or whatever, I've decided that I'm just going to believe them. There's no reason for me not to.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there are people out there who exploit
Yeah.
these situations and lie because it gets them whatever they think it gets them. But it's not up for me to discern those types of people. So if you say to me, all right, today is not the day or I'm whatever today, I'm just going to say, okay. And I'm going to move accordingly to that. And I feel like that's something a lot of people need to do. Because I feel like there is a lot of doubt and question.
Yeah.
You know?
So, yeah, I think people can come out... That's another thing. People come out and say, like, I've got XYZ, or I think I've got XYZ, and someone will immediately shut them down and be like, no, because you're not in bed all day crying, or because you're fine, you'll go to work every day. Like, it's not up to you, especially if you're not qualified or don't know anything about the subject, by the way.
No shade, no tea.
It's not up to you to decide how someone else feels. Like, if they feel like today they may not be clinically depressed, but if they feel like today they are depressed, then it's not your place to say, no, you're fine, go to work, like, go to school. That's
the thing. I feel like people who have been diagnosed, and again, this is not a generalization, I'm not speaking to everyone, but there are some people who somewhat claim ownership over these things, and because they themselves experience it a particular way, they feel like you can't have it because you're not the way I am, you know? And so I remember in Form 6, sixth form, I don't know what y'all call it here, whatever, I was saying to one of my friends that I was having some anxiety, and she was like, no, you're not, you're just uncomfortable. And I remember it literally shut me down. Like, I remember feeling, I literally crumpled inside, and I remember there was a period of time where I wouldn't use that word with regard to how I was feeling, because I felt like, okay,
you're not allowed to
I'm not allowed to be this because I'm not clinically diagnosed. And I feel like now, last couple of years or months or whatever, I've realized that that is not the case. Like, you don't have ownership over something. You don't exactly know how I feel.
Yeah. You
can't decide whether or not I am a particular way just because I don't fit the criteria you deem for these issues, you know?
I definitely think that's another issue. Like, there are 7-point-something billion people in the world, and if, like, the 1 in 4 of them go through X at X time, whether it be anxiety, depression, etc., you can't tell me that there's every single person, or even half of those people will experience the exact same thing. Everyone will experience something different, and sometimes they can't, like, I think because mental health, talking about it is such a new thing, there's a lot of not knowing how to describe how you're feeling. So, like, you may say something and it's just the best fitting word, it's not exactly how you feel because you can't describe it. So if I can't describe it to you exactly how I'm feeling it, how are you supposed to, how can you tell me that that's not correct? Like, you're not, unless you're like me and like, this is a couple years down the line when who knows what's going to happen, but there's no way you can tell someone you're not allowed to feel this or you don't feel this because you're not them, simply.
Yeah, that's a good point. Take what she said. You are not allowed to tell anyone how they feel. Well, it might make you, that might rattle some cages a little bit because, you know, we love to have opinions, but can't do it, okay? Thanks. And I'm not saying I'm not guilty of this. I am very guilty of this. Sometimes I will question people left, right, and center, and then I'll have to smack myself and go, Celine, who are you? This is not your place. No, stop, you know?
I feel that.
Yeah. But what do you think, what would you recommend, because you have dealt with people and, like, it is going to be your job maybe one day, what advice would you give to people dealing with it and people who want to help people dealing with it?
So I think one thing in all of that covers both is self-awareness. Being aware of like you yourself, if you're dealing with it, how you feel. And like it is an ugly and uncomfortable thing to address like negative mental health. But like if you don't address it, it's just gonna
fester.
Yeah. So being aware of like how you feel and acknowledging it. You don't necessarily have to tell anyone if you don't want to. That's another thing that's always going to be your choice. But recognizing that you're not in a good place and like taking steps to be like, okay, I'm not in a good place. What can I do? Or like, what do I want to do? What do I feel like doing? What can I do? What do I normally do that makes me feel better? Like those kind of questions. And if you're someone who wants to help, checking yourself, checking you're in the right place to help someone, and being aware of how you approach them. So like we talked about with the whole walking on eggshells thing, not kind of just being open with them, not hiding that you're not an expert, they know you're not an expert.
Yeah, sometimes you don't have to always say the right thing,
That you can just, I've literally said to someone like, I'm not sure I'm always going to say the right thing, and just being completely open and transparent about how you're feeling about the situation. And again, there's like loads of different, like you can read self-help books like if you're dealing with it, or if you want to kind of
help someone else,
get a grasp of what they might be feeling if they don't exactly tell you the whole truth. But also don't assume that you know what they're going through, or like assume you know what will make them better, make them feel better.
And bouncing off of that, you don't always have to relate to something. So you don't always have to bring it back to, oh, I get what you're saying, I get what you're feeling.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't, and that's okay as well. Sometimes you really just don't, and it is okay to not know.
Yeah.
Those are some good points. I hope someone can take something out of what she just said. I know I did, because I struggle a lot with dealing with my own mental health and helping other people. What I want to talk about lastly is resources available. So obviously I'm in England now. I don't know what resources are available here actually. So
okay. First point of contact, I think the easiest would be your GP. So like if you're at uni going to medical centre, or like if you live in England, your GP, they can help like pointing you in the right direction with things. They also have training on, I can't remember what it's called, but like basic mental health training to like talk you through what kind of, like what you're feeling. They'll get to the bottom of it and like then point you in the right direction. And then I know there's like online courses that you can do. I did one in February for like different things, so like stress management, or like if you're feeling anxious, like mechanisms to cope, like loads of different courses. You can also like look for therapists. There'll be like a directory somewhere on the internet, again Google.
Do you feel like there are enough resources available to?
I feel like I definitely don't think there are enough in the world in general, obviously, but I think for like basic starting points, there are resources available. You just have to find kind of, that's why I don't want to say too much like what works for you, because it can be going to counselling once, it can be seeing a therapist for like 6 months, it can be doing an online course, it can be talking to a friend. Like there are loads of different things that, because everyone's so individual, like that will help.
Yeah, I think definitely being open to what will work. So don't close any options off, you know. Something may work for you, and it's really just about like finding what that particular thing is. You know, so actually something that's helped my mental health was starting this YouTube channel. It kind of gave me this outlet to scream into a void that now has 150 subscribers. Shout out to y'all, by the way. And you know, it makes me happy. So
Mm.
it's done a whole lot to help my mental health in terms of that. With regards to resources in Trinidad, for all of my Trinidad subscribers, I'm obviously there's things such as therapists, whatnot, but they are very expensive. So, you know, that might not be an option for you if you are not financially stable. So I'm definitely going to be trying to find more financially friendly resources for y'all, and I will post that in a either follow-up video to this or on my Instagram, so be sure to go there and follow that. But like she said, I don't think there are enough resources worldwide, and I think in terms of resources there needs to be specialized factions of it. So I definitely feel like people of color need people of color, not necessarily need them, but it would help for certain things they're dealing with, because if you can understand what I'm dealing with, then it makes it a little bit easier than I'm having to explain not only my struggles but systematic struggles that are playing a role on my mental health, you know. So I feel like that is definitely something that needs to be put in place.
Same with the research.
The research, yeah. Hopefully. Hopefully we'll get that done soon. Yeah. Guys, I hope you all learned something from this video, or not even learned something, just took something away that really helped you. And Rochelle, I loved having you. You provided such great insight. So shout out to her. I will put her Instagram right now. So be sure to follow her. And thanks for joining me for another video. And I will see you all soon. Bye.
Toodles.